Turkey's foreign minister is due to go ahead with a political rally in Germany right about now, even though authorities in Hamburg canceled the original gathering because of safety concerns at the venue. The event is now being held at the Turkish consulate in the city. Earlier in Istanbul, he accused Germany of systematically blocking campaigning. Several rallies intended to garner support from ethnic Turkish voters for a referendum next month have been canceled in recent days. A yes vote would grant new constitutional powers to the Turkish president. Well, our political correspondent, Charlotte Potts, is following all of these developments from our parliamentary studios. So, Charlotte, as we mentioned, he's about to speak there in Hamburg, despite the fact that this city has canceled a previously planned rally. How is this move being viewed?
Well, this is actually Turkish soil that he's speaking on after the city of Hamburg has canceled an original larger event, and there's not much that German authorities can do. The Turkish consulate in Hamburg is a rather small venue. There are approximately 150 people, according to police, that will fit in there tonight. And the foreign minister already said if there are more people showing up, he might hold his speech from the balcony. I talked to police earlier. They are mostly expecting AKP supporters to show up there. And of course, the foreign minister is nonetheless going to rally votes, expat votes here in Germany for the controversial referendum. And that is why protests are being held outside at this hour, protests by people who are opposing the referendum and also protests by people who demand the release of the German journalist who is detained in Turkey right now.
So a tense mood there on the streets of Hamburg. But how has the German government, meantime, responded to all of this?
Well, the German government and first and foremost the German chancellor have said that they don't want a general ban on Turkish ministers coming to campaign in Germany. So they are basically allowing that, though legally Turkish ministers don't have necessarily the right to campaign in Germany. But we've also heard strong criticism across the aisle here about this controversial referendum that is supposed to give President Erdogan more powers. As I said, all political parties here in parliament are on the same page in Germany, and they say that the referendum is actually mostly viewed as being anti-democratic. So Hamburg was the fourth municipality to cancel a large rally, and I think that the German government didn't mind that.
Meantime, tomorrow, the country's two top diplomats, both of the foreign ministers, will be meeting. You know, given this atmosphere of tensions in Turkish-German relations, what's expected from that meeting?
Well, of course, this meeting comes at a time where really Turkish-German relations are at a new low. German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel has stated that the relations are tense, yes, but that he also wants to normalize those relations. And the Turkish Foreign Minister has called Sigmar Gabriel a friend. So there are most certainly diplomatic grounds on which the discussions can start. And those are the first official talks after a while of not talking. So the hopes here in Berlin are that this will calm the diplomatic fire at least a little bit.
Charlotte Potts in Berlin. Thank you. That was an interview with the lawyer for Anas Modamani, the refugee who brought that case against Facebook that we told you about a little bit earlier. Let's move on to some other news now, because Turkey's foreign minister is going ahead with a political rally in Germany, even though authorities in Hamburg canceled the original gathering because of safety concerns at the venue. The event is now being held at the Turkish consulate in the city. Earlier in Istanbul, he accused Germany of systematically blocking campaigning. Several rallies intended to garner support from ethnic Turkish voters for a referendum next month have been canceled in recent days. A yes vote would grant new constitutional powers to the Turkish president. Let's bring in now our political correspondent, Charlotte Potts, who is standing by with the latest on this story. So, Charlotte, as we just heard there, the Turkish foreign minister speaking in Hamburg, despite the fact that this city has canceled a previously planned rally. How is all of this being viewed?
Well, I mean, the foreign minister is actually speaking on Turkish soil, so there is not much that German authorities, German local authorities could have done or said. The Turkish consulate in Hamburg is a rather small venue. We know that around 100 strong supporters of the AKP have been invited to attend the event, but people have also gathered outside, and the Turkish foreign minister is expected to speak. He is speaking actually right now, as we see in the pictures. This minute he's starting outside on the balcony to those AKP supporters that have gathered outside. They are waving the Turkish flag at him. And of course, it is not as large of an event as the one that was actually planned in Hamburg that was cancelled by the city, but he is nonetheless rallying expat votes, Turkish expats vote here in Germany for the controversial referendum. And that is also why protesters have gathered close to the Turkish consulate there in Hamburg, people who oppose the referendum and also people who are demanding for the German journalist to be released that is detained right now in Turkey.
And as we can see there from those live pictures, perhaps we can bring those back up. He seems to have a sizable crowd, actually, of supporters that have gathered to hear him speak. How has the German government, meanwhile, been reacting to this?
Well, the German government and also, first and foremost, the German chancellor have made clear that there is basically room for Turkish ministers to campaign here in Germany in general to rally those votes. But they've also stated at the same time that they view this referendum in Turkey that is coming up in April as anti-democratic. And this is a view that is perceived across the aisle here in Parliament, that they say the referendum, is supposed to give Erdogan more power and is in general anti-democratic. But it is most certainly one of the big political issues being discussed in Berlin here right now, whether to allow Turkish rallies in Germany or not.
Meantime, foreign ministers from both of these countries, they're set to meet tomorrow. What's expected there?
Well, they are meeting really at times where Turkish-German relations are at a new low. But the German foreign minister, Sigmar Gabriel, he has said he wants to normalize relations. The Turkish foreign minister that you see here in the pictures, he has stated that Sigmar Gabriel is a friend. So there is certainly a diplomatic foundation that the two can move on to. And it's good that they are starting official talks after weeks where really there were no official talks held. And well, here in Berlin, most of the people view this as a good sign that relations could improve just a little bit in the next weeks.
Charlotte Potts with the very latest on this story. We thank you very much for your reporting.
I'm Brent Goff. It's good to have you with us. Don't give us lessons in democracy and human rights. That is the message tonight from Turkey's foreign minister to Germany in a speech in Hamburg. Now, Mevlut Çavuşoğlu said that Germany is putting pressure on its Turkish citizens, and he said that that is unacceptable. He also said that Europe is supporting terrorism against Turkey. Now, the foreign minister was speaking at the Turkish consulate in Hamburg. As with other similar rallies, the original venue had been canceled by the authorities because of concerns over safety. Turkey has rejected those concerns, and the issue has created tension between the two governments. The rallies were intended to win support among the Turkish community in Germany for a referendum that will give greater powers to President Erdogan. All right, we want to bring in our political correspondent now, Charlotte Potts. She is at our parliamentary studios. Good evening to you, Charlotte. So the Turkish foreign minister spoke in Hamburg, despite the fact that the city canceled a planned political rally. What more did he have to say?
Well, I think you already mentioned the most important part. He said, Germany, don't give Turkey a lesson in democracy and human rights. And then he went on and actually gave Germany a lesson in democracy, saying that Germany shouldn't meddle with Turkish politics. And he was referring to the decision by German local authorities to cancel several rallies by Turkish ministers who were here to rally votes for the controversial April referendum. So this whole speech was pretty much a frontal attack and a provocation against the German government. And it does make you wonder, in a way, why the foreign minister actually used this stage at the Turkish consulate at Turkish soil in Hamburg. If he wanted to really rally votes for that referendum from expats here in Germany, from Turkish expats, or if he was trying to fire up nationalists in Turkey against Germany.
Well, when you look at the pictures, Charlotte, he's standing there at the Turkish consulate in Germany with people waving the Turkish flag. It could be viewed as a provocation against the German government.
Exactly. It could be viewed as that, and we'll have to see how the German government is reacting to it. So far, we haven't gotten any immediate reactions. We know that Chancellor Merkel has said time and time again that, in general, rallies of Turkish officials should be allowed here in Germany, that they should be allowed to campaign here. But we've also heard from the German government, from political parties across all the aisles, all political aisles here in Germany, that they think the referendum in Turkey is anti-democratic. And this speech by the Turkish foreign minister in Hamburg tonight will certainly add more fuel to the diplomatic fire that is growing between the two nations at the moment.
Speaking of the diplomatic fire, the German foreign minister is supposed to meet with the Turkish foreign minister tomorrow. Do we dare guess what the two will talk about?
Well, it's certainly going to be a very intense and tensed breakfast, I suppose, at a time where Turkish-German relations are really at a low. They are most certainly going to talk about the German journalist that is detained in Turkey right now, about this speech, about the Nazi comparisons that President Erdogan made over the weekend. There are a lot of topics on the table, and it promises to be a very tense discussion tomorrow morning.
All right, our correspondent Charlotte Potts on the story for us tonight here in Berlin. Charlotte, thank you very much.